Everybody, welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Baltimore, the show of running, roller derby, and health. Most importantly, health. Today's guest, the Baltimore Sable herself, Miss Amie Ward, caught her doing some conversations for Bar Institute here in Austin, Texas, surrounding mental health, physical health, how to take care of yourself from behind the bar, and even certain little techniques to help those repetitive straining injuries. It's a great thing to talk about now that cocktail culture has this resurgence. There's a lot of people that have been in this industry a long time, and we put our bodies on the line every single night, drinking, partying, and just working those repetitive motions in your shoulders, lower back. These are things that you need to take care of, and it's great to talk to Amie about certain kinds of solutions there, how to eat better behind the bar, how to plan, and how to overall just take better care of your body. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this great chat with Amie Ward.
Yeah, Baltimore has definitely changed a lot in the last couple of years. I think it's just like any other big city that you're in. There's going to be good blocks, there's bad blocks.
Yeah.
You know, walk with a sense of purpose and know where you're going.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Looking like confident?
I think I walk like a crazy person when I'm going down the street, so nobody really bothers me.
The crazy.
Hood up, fierce walking, like very purposeful, fast, little agitated looking.
Yeah, that's good.
Nobody wants to talk to the weirdo that's like speed walking where they have to go.
That is very true, because they're like, is she on drugs, maybe?
Right. More than likely, if I'm in Baltimore, I might be.
Could very well be, right?
Yeah.
But so I've only been to Baltimore once. I spent an evening there, and I was told explicitly to not walk back to my hotel, and it kind of put me off. I can't imagine that Baltimore is truly that dangerous.
I really don't think it's that bad. Just like I said, there's certain neighborhoods that have a little bit more crime associated with it, but it's a city just like any other. There's going to be crime. There's going to be higher rates of it because there's more people in the city. People look at tourists as easy targets just because they don't know where they're going. They don't look like they're walking with a sense of purpose. So
that's a good point,
you might be able to be pinpointed a little bit easier by someone who doesn't want to be up to any good at that point in time. But
is it safe to say that hoodies are the great equalizer?
Yes.
Because it makes you look like you know where you're going and pissed off, no matter what country or state you're in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've ever watched Luke Cage, the series,
there you go.
Then we know the hoodies are the way of life right there. So
very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Is it for people in Chicago, for people in not Houston as much, but maybe New York? Is there a sense of pride about being from Maryland?
I think so. I've always been very happy to be from Maryland. I think we're one of the only states that's like deeply in love with our flag, and we put it on absolutely everything. So the Maryland pride, crab cakes and football, all that nonsense.
Cal Ripken Jr.
Hell
yes.
Oh, man after my heart.
I love that guy still.
Yeah, he's great. You grow up watching some of these like people that you fall in love with that just really give you a sense of love for the state. And
it does. It seems like a great spot. I mean, the people are amazing.
I love it. I mean, it's always been a very working class town, and that's coming down from like when it was a steel import export place. Yeah. It's very tight knit. It's very tiny. It's very scrappy. We don't pretend to be anything that we're not. I don't think there's really much air of pretentiousness because we are what you see. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the best thing about Baltimore.
I think
it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's important now because there's a lot of we can talk about cocktails being that way. We can talk about fitness being that way. People being pretentious and I won't eat gluten. Yeah. I mean, come on. There's just certain things that really have this air. So it's good to hear the kind of like working class. Yeah. Down to earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And with our industry in particular, we are a very close-knit group of humans. Like, we generally like each other's company. Yeah. And it's not a bunch of bullshit, if I can say that. So that's
true, yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice. It's a lot of camaraderie. It's very close. It's It's beautiful.
It's good. Well, I got to go back then. Now that I know like a person.
Yeah. Please, I will be happy to be your tour guide throughout
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And I got to get a crab cake because they're
absolutely
just
you do.
Crab.
And you go outside the city for that. Like
okay.
The county has some of the best stuff.
Fair.
The closer you get to the proper parts of the water and not the harbor, then you'll be closer to the good stuff.
Okay, well, good. I'm making a list.
Yes. Mental tab.
Mental tab, indeed. So, as I understand it, it's interesting because there's a lot of intersections for you, at least from kind of the research I did, is talk about kinesiology, the physical fitness piece, and then hospitality. So, but ultimately, you're born and raised in Maryland. What part of Maryland?
So I was born in PG County in Cheverly, just outside of Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Spent a couple years there and then moved to Edgewater, which is in Anne Arundel County, right on the water, edge of the water. Just south of Annapolis. And once I was 18, I was up and out of there and started kind of bebopping around.
Well, what is it like? So I moved around a lot when I was younger. So how do you get into trouble in Maryland, like as a kid? Or does that even happen?
I mean, most of the people where I grew up, it was getting in trouble, like playing on the water or being out like on boats when you shouldn't have been, or crabbing and bringing in the wrong size crab that wasn't of legal limit. Like
it sounds tough, though.
Yeah, tough life. I definitely grew up in a much more rural area and lots of water around everything. But I always wanted to be in the city, so that's why I eventually found my way to Baltimore.
Were your folks doing the farm, like, is it called farming? Is it?
No. We were in farm town, but my dad's a printer and my mom was a paralegal.
Oh, cool.
And my dad still is in the printing industry in Washington, D.C. So just very blue collar, working class.
Yeah.
They went to about a semester of college, dropped out, got married, had kids, and
the American dream.
Yeah. Had 2 kids by the time they were 23, and
dang. So but for you, like, the small town thing wasn't big enough.
That
you
was
had to
not
get
my that was not my cup of tea. I mean, like, I moved out the moment that I possibly could.
But it's not because of any kind of like discord or anything with your parents?
Right? I was always a very independent human. I wanted to be out and experience everything. You know, I grew up in such a very plain vanilla area where you only see the same person, same few people all the time. So I moved away to try to experience as much as I possibly could. And by moving away, I mean I moved all throughout Maryland, which you can drive through in about 3.5 hours. So,
oh, really? I didn't realize it's so small.
It's pretty tiny. I mean, Delaware is definitely tinier, and they're close to us. But, I moved probably about 30 minutes north when I first moved out, and then eventually got closer towards Baltimore.
Okay. Well, was the move... the college thing, right? So you talk about like having 2 kids, getting married. That's part of the American dream. I guess another aspect or facet to it is got to go to college, got to get that degree. Was that of any interest to you to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I always wanted to go to college. I'm the first person to go to college in my family. Graduate, went back and got another degree too. Wow. And it was nothing I was really pushed towards. It was as long as I tried the best at what I was doing and put my best effort forward, that was good enough for my family. Crazy. Like, so, they always like, yeah, great, you're going to school? That's fantastic. Oh my God, you're going for another degree? Jesus, we weren't even really expecting that. Blown, right? Yeah. Whoa, calm down. No, but they've always been supportive of absolutely everything I did. Yeah. Those things weren't priority. It was work as hard as you possibly can, put your best effort forward, and, I think that very blue collar mentality.
I think that's great. So work for what you've got instead of ever feeling entitled for it,
Absolutely.
Were you a math and science kid or more arts, liberal college kind of thing?
Math and science, but desperately wanted to be the other.
Yeah.
I think. I did a lot of art when I was growing up and played sports too. I always
so you had like this not dichotomy, like a duality in a sense.
Yeah.
What when you talk about art, were you drawing? Were you painting?
Drawing, painting. My grandmother taught me how to draw and paint, and she still is a magnificent artist.
Yeah.
And I wanted so much to be like that, but I think I was always going to be more science-minded. I tried like hell. Yeah. I really did, but my writing, my science, that was always fighting one another.
An inner turmoil, yeah. But that's what creates some cool movement in life,
Absolutely. But ended up, even for my degrees once I went to school, I did kinesiology in its proper form, exercise physiology for my undergrad, and then kind of from there went into the physical cultural studies side of it for my master's. because I wanted to write about it. I wanted to talk about like things that were happening political wise in the sports movement. And being a woman and being an athlete and the kind of fights you fight and that, which aren't really so much nowadays, I think, but like 10 years ago when I was.
Still, it's still very important to have that voice now.
Yeah.
What was your sport of choice?
So I was field hockey while I was growing up, field hockey and softball, and then I eventually found my way into roller derby.
Oh, cool, yeah.
By doing my master's thesis, I found roller derby. And
counterintuitive, I got to tell you. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. And roller derby, I played for about 8 years. I'm still semi-involved on the coaching side and will be more recreational again in the near future. But now I've taken on strong woman training in the last year.
What is that?
Yeah. So basically Olympic lifting, but moving odd everyday objects.
It's like tires and
flipping tires, throwing kegs over a bar, keg carries and toss. Yeah, functional strength. things that work behind the bar, pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so you. I'm not gonna make any assumptions, but so we're both adults here. We're out of our 20s. Is that fair to say? Okay. So there's always that hump. You get out of college and you're living a certain way, and then you're working, and then your metabolism slows down inevitably. But when did you realize like you actually need to take care of your body?
Yeah, I did have that aha moment too, because even with that background that I had and being heavily involved in sports, I started working part-time in the bar industry and found myself gravitating towards the bad eating habits. And
it's just easy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was very easy, and it was about 4 years ago or so that I woke up and I'm like, God, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
Like, I feel sluggish. I put on weight that I never should have. Like, my frame's never going to grow out of what it is.
Right.
I'm not sleeping well. My skin looks like crap. And my digestive tract is just off. Like, everything I'm putting into my body and everything that I'm giving out doesn't match.
Wow.
So I stopped eating at my bar. I started learning how to meal prep. Which was probably like the saving grace right there.
Meal planning is amazingly helpful. Yeah.
Meal planning was fantastic. I also once you hit your 30s, everything starts to change. Started realizing that couldn't do cheese, the magical cheese I used to love.
So it started like in digestional problems?
Yep. So anytime I ate dairy, I felt terrible, and I started when I started to float that out of my life, started to feel a lot better.
Really? So kind of isolating some things.
Mm-hmm. Something happened where dairy became not my friend, which is really sad because I still love cheese.
It's the worst. I am actually really sad right now.
Yeah. To hear I know. I mean, almond milk's a good substitute. I'm not sad about that.
It tastes good. Yeah.
But cheese, man, cheese is magical. I'll still suffer through it once in a while with some Lactaid to back it up. But it's stuff like that. I mean, even things such as like onions and shallots and like those
garlic and
those things cooked down were harmful for my body.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I did a lot of. I did go to the doctor first because I was like, "What's going on?" They were trying to tell me that I had gallstones, and it wasn't the case. It was more dietary stuff. So I started trying to testing on my own what worked and what didn't work for my body.
Yeah.
So dairy had to go, and it's cooked onions. Raw onions are great, but cooked onions became a bad thing.
Really? Because there's some conversion there. What's that? There's an acid.
I think it's a breakdown of a protein inside.
Yeah.
Some chain breakdown in the cooking process really didn't work for my body. So I started really opening up my eyes to what my body was responding to, and started to go with that. So the eating was the first thing to change.
Yeah.
I found when I was still at my day job, because I worked for Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Really? Doing what over there?
I was working for the chief of medicine, helping to coordinate the medical intern program.
Oh, wow.
There. Yeah. So still involved in education and health to a degree.
Yeah.
But I also found that wasn't necessarily where I belonged. It was a very, very conservative office. And, my hair is as red as this wall. So you can...
a crimson color.
Yeah. It didn't quite work for them. But I was able to, at that time, start to go to the gym because there was a gym right below my office, which was fantastic. So I started using my lunch hours to become my workout hours and got on a really good routine from that.
Yeah.
That helped. I was also, still playing roller derby at the time, so it really improved my game for that too.
Well, legs are amazingly stabilizing things, right?
Yeah. But just the dietary changes alone dropped like 20 pounds I didn't know that didn't
crap.
need to be on my body.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just from crap that I was taking into my body and not able to process properly, and then putting a little daily workout into it as well.
And so things started to kind of transform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd say up until a year ago, I played roller derby, but I had been weightlifting pretty heavily, and then trying to figure out a transition out of roller derby and into something else, because team sports are my life, and if I don't play sports, I get
feel kind of empty.
Yeah, I get unhealthy. I definitely need that mental thing for myself. I need competition. I need camaraderie. So I found
a bar kind of offers that in a sense, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And stopping roller derby was a result of being in a position of leadership at the bar when I finally decided to leave. I finally decided to leave 9-to-5 world about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, so can we talk about that?
Yeah,
so
please.
You spend this time pursuing academia, writing, really, really getting involved with health. I'll just call it generally health, right? And so you're doing some work at John Hopkins. And then what's that moment where you realize perhaps I can't be in a doctor's office all the time. I can't be in a hospital.
Yeah, I just felt like I recognized that I wasn't happy. So mentally, I wasn't happy where I was. It wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't proud of what I did every single day. Yeah. Proud, yes, fine, but I didn't want to brag about it. Like, it was nothing I wanted to brag about. I wanted to be very happy to go to work, and it felt like I was less and less happy going to work.
So it was perhaps not an extension of you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you want to say this is a piece of my passion.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was hard. I always felt like I was trying to fit in, so I never felt like it was a part of me. I felt like I was trying to insert myself in a place where I didn't necessarily belong.
Yeah.
I had great coworkers, but they also, when I told them I was going to make the transition and go into bartending full time, which I'd done part time for about 5.5 years before that, they're like, that makes a lot of sense. Oh. They told me.
So they were really supportive.
They understood. Yeah, they absolutely understood. And the reasons why I decided to make the leap was because I had really nothing to lose, and I'd never taken big risks before. Yeah. Being a very working class human being, I think all of my steps were very calculated because there wasn't a lot of money when I was growing up, so everything was kind of planned to a T for myself. And I'd never decided to just take a chance. And at that point, like, I didn't have debt, I didn't have anything to really worry about, so I
took the
chance.
Yeah.
And I quit Hopkins, and they were, again, super supportive. I just saw one of the doctors I used to work with a couple weeks ago. She came in to drop off bitters that her husband was making.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
You're ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah. And I made the jump. I first went to a hotel bar that was really high volume, very, very corporate, was a good launching pad, but wasn't really my cup of tea.
But it's actually, that seems like a nice transitional job, because it's still kind of corporate, but it's giving you a little more freedom.
Yeah, if anything, that was probably the safest thing to go to, because I also left a bar I had been at for 5.5 years, and it was a dive bar. It wasn't going to necessarily bring in, the income that I needed. So this was a safe transition. Thankfully, along the line, I got an offer to go to upscale Italian restaurant.
Was it called Agio?
Yeah. So Brian Voltaggio's.
Yeah.
They never really focused on the bar before. That was just superior food, and the wine program was amazing. And they're like, we need somebody to run the bar. What do you think? And I'm like, okay, why the hell not?
So this is all right. So knowing health, of course, you've got probably a great attention of detail. Mm-hmm. You understand causation and how things probably work at even a molecular level. So alcohol's a lot like that.
Yep.
When you get a role like that, do you feel that you are intellectually equipped to do that?
I wasn't sure.
Really?
I was scared to death because I'd never been in charge of my own program. I've always been like a leader within sports and things of that nature, but I'd never thought about whether I had the tools to be in a position to lead a bar program.
Interesting.
So I took that was a bigger risk, I think, than leaving my safe 9-to-5 job, because this was the what the hell if I don't know what I'm doing. But what I walked into was a very nurturing environment where the chef, the sommelier, and the general manager became my kind of like semi-mentors and team players. Like the
brain
chef.
Stress.
Yeah. The chef taught me amazing things about culinary techniques. So at this dive bar I had worked for the longest time, I developed this awkward palate because he carried the weirdest spirits possible.
Really?
Yeah, so it was great. So I had this really unique palate, and I was used to making these weird combinations of flavors to make good stuff.
Yeah.
But now I have this chef who's teaching me how to actually make some of the ingredients that I want to do. So making the syrups on my own, making these weird flavors, using strange products to kind of...
Can you just clarify what strange might mean in this case? Because it's probably something we drink normally now.
Well, maybe. I mean, he taught me... I was trying to make a drink with horchata, and he taught me horchata. Instead of horchata, because it had that really gritty texture, and, you know, you always have this, like, settlement problem that comes in. He taught me how to make a tole on my own, which is instead oatmeal blended down with the same kind of spices you would find in horchata.
Yeah, I am making a face.
And then,
it's interesting.
And then blended down into like this almost paste-like consistency, but a little bit thinner so you could work with it more. And I got to use that instead. So things like that, teaching me how to sous vide products. Like this is where all the culinary techniques of like being able to cryovac your stuff to save it for later. What year
are we talking that you were kind of doing this stuff?
This probably like last year is where I was really...
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, learning the bulk of everything. I started, August was when I started. So from August until now of last year, I was like just getting all this crazy amount of stuff. Starting learning to work with alternative acids, where he put me in touch with, you know, what kind of vinegars I could use or different, making my own like acid combinations and using verjus and
oh that's great. Well, very culinary focused taste for alcohol.
And I love my chef. He's out in California now, and I miss him dearly. But he taught me so much stuff. And then my sommelier and I worked together because he had a very discerning palate. He taught me about wine, which really helped kind of fall back into my cocktails too, to like really nuance flavors. Made me fall in love with grappa because of different varietals and things like that. But also being in that Italian setting, I was able to... I'd always loved bitters, Amari, but kind of like went off the deep end with his guidance too, because he kept putting me in contact with all these different wine producers that could give me different Amari that they had as well.
That's amazing.
And kind of just went...
It sounds like kind of a wonderland.
Yeah.
Like Willy Wonka's like
it was
store there.
Phenomenal. I love that space so much. It just happened to be the greatest concept in the middle of a college kid's playground. So
kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah, it just didn't work in the setting. Anywhere else in the city, it would have
killed it.
Been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we've all departed and gone different ways since then. But I mean, it was an amazing opportunity to really develop and cultivate what would be my niche, I guess, in terms of like the bitters and the, you know, making your own products, using sustainable ingredients. I try to use another thing he was big on was using every portion of the product.
Right, yeah.
So
no waste, right?
Right, no
limited waste.
And that's still something I'm trying really, like I'm in a very, very high volume setting right now, so I'm trying like hell to not waste a lot. But that definitely came into fruition right there. Like
that was the Jedi training, right? Like, can you come out of it probably with some really aha kinds of objectives getting out of there?
Lots of that. Lots of also denying a family meal there because it was really, really delicious stuff that I couldn't eat.
Oh, that's great. Not great, but that's a great realization to have.
Yep. Yeah. So, not being able to eat all the cheese and dairy heavy pasta that was handmade every single day and absolutely exquisite, but learning also... You know, still taking into the meal prep accountability, being able to pack my own lunch and eat with the family still.
Right. So, so you still can make it social.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. And actually, I want to talk about that for a moment before we talk about our bar and then kind of the topics of discussion for Bar Institute here in Austin. Health's a big thing for me, too. That's really one of the reasons I was interested in talking to you. In this industry, there's a lot of things. There's stress. There is convenience, and we reach for bad things. We sip bad things. Alcohol in itself, however, is not bad. In itself, like drinking a neat spirit is not necessarily bad. So let's talk about food then. For one. So you are bound to have some tips for people because since they don't plan, they have to, after the fact, find food that's probably not so good. Go to a street cart, eat something bad. So for someone that's working a really long shift, what is maybe some notes that you have for them to help them be prepared?
So Yeah, preparation is always going to be key. I think if you can find a way to get one really solid balanced meal in before your shift and then pack snacks so you can eat every 2 to 3 hours in those 12 to 14-hour shifts, that's going to be the best thing that possibly can help you.
What are a few snacks that you like? And you
Justin's nut butter packets. And those guys are awesome. The guy who I had worked with, because I taught this class in full at the Baltimore Bar Institute last year, not like the moving so much, but just the why our bodies are at risk in this particular industry, mind and body. And talking to the Justin's guys, they were all ex-bartenders and are like, we love this idea. So they sent me tons of samples. And like those little guys.
Good protein, good fats.
190 calories and just straight protein.
Yeah.
Like you can't really get better than that. And that's something you can bend over to tie your shoe and sneak that in very quickly or run to the bathroom really quick and eat that on your way. And that'll still keep you going for the next couple of hours. I think those are amazing. Honey Stinger is another one that does.
Is that? Oh, is that the same packet, right?
Yep. They do like little energy waffles.
Oh, I've seen those, yeah.
So they're not vegan, which is the only thing if like you're a vegan, that's the one thing that wouldn't work for you. But everything else is organic products that come into it. They're just fantastic to have quick and on the go, and they really do pack a lot of protein in there. So basically we're looking for a good combination of protein and carbs.
Right.
If you can boil some eggs ahead of time.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hard-boiled egg, easy thing to take on the road. And then, I mean, that's the best thing you can do.
So be prepared. Right?
Be prepared. And if we're getting to this place where we're working 4 shifts a week, which is hopefully what everybody's doing, like that's the max that I will allow my bartenders, barbacks, and bar servers to work every week is 4 shifts, so they can have those other 3 days to prep, mentally reset, physically reset, and everything. If you can take 1 day and about 3 hours of your life and meal prep 3 to 5 decent meals and snacks so you can just grab and go every day, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. So you don't have an excuse of, I don't have time or I woke up late. You can just snag that stuff out of the fridge and go.
Yeah. What about after shifts? Things are, you want to have a drink to unwind, which I completely understand.
Right.
But then that follows some other decisions. It follows staying out till 4 in the morning. What do you do then? You think?
In that case, that's why I really try to promote eating while you're working.
Yeah.
Like getting those every 2 to 3 hours.
So you're not starving and famished.
Yeah, because you really want to stop. You want to stop eating about 12 to 14 hours after you've been awake, which kind of falls in line with how every bartender's schedule works out for the most part. So if you can keep those protein and carb heavy snacks going along the way, given that you've had that one meal beforehand, that should help you. I never really encourage a big meal at the end of a shift just because it's so much harder to digest. It's so much harder for your body to reset and fall asleep. It's really important for preparation to go into it. If you absolutely must eat something afterwards, I say something super simple like apple or celery and peanut butter just to
something fibrous. Slow digesting carb.
Yep,
basically, right?
absolutely. I think that's the best way to go about it. And I think if you combine that with a good amount of water, like getting half your body weight in ounces every single day, if you can get that, the water combination with everything else kind of keeps you hydrated, keeps your organs functioning well, keeps your skin
satiated too, which is good,
and keeps you full. Yep, keeps you full and gets the digestion process going.
Do you think this stuff? So I think we've both probably done a lot of reading on whether it's bodybuilding, not professionally necessarily, but how do you build muscle, how do you stay and all this kind of stuff. It can be really confusing. Like, where do I start? Right? This is something that I think that a lot of people don't understand exactly. And so for people so the concept of packing meals makes a lot of sense. Getting little bite-sized things you can eat kind of progressively through a shift makes some sense. But how can you give, for someone that's like, well, I don't really get eating, I don't understand what I should do, what do you think might be a good guidance for them, if that makes sense?
Just to get them wrapping their heads around the meal prep idea.
Wrapping it around what, in essence, should they be eating, you know?
Yeah. You can look at the food pyramid versus the food plate. Like, it's now the food plate that we're going off of for the FDA and whatnot. You can look at what the balance is. It's got to be a good balance of fruits, veggies, proteins, and trying to have some like mineral intake along the way. I'd say, everybody's on the internet anyways. Google meal planning and just look at intro to meal planning so they can see what works for them. Really, another good way is just to make a list of things I like to eat, things I don't like to eat. And if the things that you like to eat and the don't like to eat don't like, if you see junk food more so on the don't like, you gotta rethink some life choices, and you gotta think about.
I don't want celery. But celery's good for you.
Yeah, it's good for you. It's what is it? Loss for your colon.
That's right.
Yeah. It's you can. I would suggest just looking at samples on the web of proper food preparation and diet intro, like, because people don't know what good foods are for them. Like,
I don't think so. Yeah. Because given you have some problems with dairy, but light string cheese is a great protein dense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can keep it in your pocket. You know.
Yeah. So for the people that can have dairy, that's a great thing to carry on all hands. I just reset myself and I go for more, almond butters and peanut butters and things like that, so I can get my nut proteins from that. I do fake cheese too. Some of the fake cheeses are doing good in terms of getting some protein back in there because they're pea protein.
Yeah.
So you do get a lot of vegetable protein, but there's this,
other kinds of nutrients and things.
Yeah. Other sources are definitely out there for you. I think clean eating is a good way to start.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to go the route of paleo. I don't think you need to go the route of zone or anything like that. Yeah. I think clean, which gives you the most unprocessed foods possible, is really the way to go, because you're just trying to get the healthiest stuff into your body.
And they happen to be less calorie dense too. That's something a lot of people don't realize. Like, why eat clean? It's like, well, it's probably one of the reasons you're skinnier and more fit is because you're not consuming as many calories.
Yeah.
There's that piece.
Or
of it
good
too,
calories. Like, I'm getting only the good stuff in. I'm getting the good fats. Like, I eat avocados like it's my job. They're amazing and delicious. But yeah, I think trying to look up clean eating and looking for example starter diet, not diets. I never want to think of it as diet, but like starter meal prep is kind of the way to go.
Parameters to it. All right, so good. So I'm actualized. I'm planning my meals. I'm getting more water, but I'm still going to be drinking. So what parameters, I think, is an okay word, but what kinds of habits do you think are good habits with drinking?
I think drinking for celebration, drinking to socialize is totally fine. I think that when you have had a rough day and you go to your friend's bar and have a drink, that might not be the way to go about things. So instead of, like, in this very emotionally tasking job that we do and mentally tasking job that we do, instead of trying to get off shift and immediately have a drink, maybe go to the gym. So try the 24-hour fitness stuff, the Planet Fitness, which is $10 a month, or just try to do, 10 to 15 minutes of high to moderate intensity exercise when you're done with work, as a way to just kind of like shake things off before you decide to go out drinking, because that may take that immediate reaction and need away from you. Like, we all want to visit our friends. We all want to go pay attention to the other bartenders and support them, but after your shift, when you've had a bad day, isn't necessarily the way to go about it. Yeah. So I preach a lot about self-care and trying to find other things that make you happy. Think of stuff that you did when you were 5 years old that really
playing in mud.
Yeah. Play with mud, drawing in books. If you have the opportunity, things that you didn't do when you were 5, but things that make you happy, like go have sex. Like,
totally.
Do things that make you physically and mentally happy.
That makes me want to drink whiskey, though, admittedly.
Well, things that can be paired. It's everything in moderation, right? So I talk about how much water you need to take in, and I drink coffee like it's religion. Yeah. Right? And for every cup of coffee that I take in, I have to drink 2 more cups of water to make up for that. So life's all about balance. I'm not trying to preach one particular way of life for anybody, but just to find moderation, just like anybody else would preach to you. Moderation is key. Try to find better ways to deal with your bad days. Talk to somebody. Yeah. Go zone out. Go do yoga. Go ride a bike. Go, watch anime or whatever you like to do. But don't always translate it into drinking as the immediate reaction for a bad day, a bad shift, or anything like that.
Do you think, so one of the things is Google's like obviously a great resource. So you have, for health, I think there's plenty of resources, even some consultation you can have among your peers in the industry and stuff. But psychologically, I don't think there are the same just collection of resources to deal with, not illness might be too far, but just mental conditions, just general stress, general anxiety. Do you have any ideas as how we can rally behind maybe a better infrastructure around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think what we experience as bartenders or people in this profession is the same as secondary trauma that teachers, medical professionals all experience. what they do is seek outside resources. I think it's okay to commiserate with your friends, but know that they're experiencing potentially the same amount of trauma, and also you inviting your trauma onto them is another thing.
Which just it's a dark, what is it, misery loves company.
Yeah, misery loves company. In Baltimore, I know we have a lot of free or very low price resources in terms of mental health counseling. If you wanted to seek it, Loyola University is one that's near us that offers like a $15 drop-in to have hour-long sessions.
That's great.
And they'll pair you with somebody, like you go through a short little survey and they'll pair you with somebody that meets your goals, your expectations. I think maybe having a group of bartenders to meet outside of a drinking facility, like maybe go to the park and just chat about things is a better way to deal with it. Because anytime you involve the alcohol on top of the stories, it steamrolls.
Well, it's a depressive and it skews the conversation, you know. So what do you, for you, someone that is, I find it's really sometimes being healthy and being committed to being healthy, although you can do it, it causes a lot of stress in itself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you're like, well, what if I just have an extra whiskey? It's like a really great tasting. You know, how do I even deal? I'm talking about me now. This is about people behind the bar necessarily. But how do you deal with the stress of all of this? What is the best way for you?
For me, the physical activity is my stress relief. If I didn't have that, I think that would be kind of tough. But I put a lot of pressure on myself, just like what you were saying, in terms of if I don't meet my workouts. Like right now, I'm doing starting strength, which is I'm bodybuilding. I'm doing Olympic lifting, and my goal is to get as strong as possible so I can be a better strongwoman competitor. And if I am not on this every other day lifting pattern, then that messes up my routine. Like I'm gone all week, and I'm going to be reset about 10 to 15 pounds when I go back. It's tough. I think forgiveness for yourself is a really important thing too. Like letting yourself have hiccups in training or hiccups in your shift. Hiccups are okay. Let yourself have a bad day. Let yourself not have a schedule that meets the demands that are set forth to you, and just be forgiving to yourself. That relieves a lot of emotional and mental stress for yourself and allows you to be a little bit more relaxed.
Because part of that being healthy is not having the stress.
Right.
So if you can just exhale it out, you know, let go of it, that actually will be better for your body anyway.
Yep. It's whatever form of self-care that you can possibly give to yourself. I know I'm like battling that myself right now, just with having a new bar open. I'm working 70 hours a week on a regular basis, and I don't have time for my partner. I don't have time for myself. I sit awake at night because I've got this extra stress. So I'm still every single day working with myself, trying to find what works for me, what doesn't. Like, how do I turn everything off? How do I turn my brain off so I can actually get some sleep? I've tried readjusting my schedule, and now I get up a little earlier to go work out before I go to work instead of afterwards, which is
way tougher after.
It's also kind of cool being the only person in the gym at that time.
That's true. You can grunt as much as you want.
But I think just being willing to make accommodations to your own schedule and try to adjust is the biggest thing. So for me, again, readjusting myself to be up in the mornings for the gym, then go to work after that. I think be willing to change, be yielding, be flexible, and keep trying to find different solutions for yourself.
You have to, because your body changes. You know, sometimes yoga will be better for you than resistance training. Maybe HIIT will be better than steady state. I mean, there's so many different things, and it can get confusing. But I think that you have set some kind of like easy guideposts, if you will, mile markers to try to kind of understand that. And so as part of the Bar Institute, that this is Econo, is that what this version, which is kind of cool, and it's like a light version preparing us for, I think, June or July, where it comes back to Dallas. A bigger piece of it. So these tours, you've got multiple dates and everything. I imagine you talk about a lot of this stuff in your presentation. What other kinds of things do you cover to try to help the community when you're on the road here doing this class?
So in this, for the Econo tour, I am trying to teach people about how they can move behind the bar, more functional movement that is helpful to them, using their low boys and counters as stretching implements, using your bar tools as a stretching implement for over top of your head, basically just learning to work in the space that you have. And then what I've brought as just like an extra fun thing is lacrosse balls for everybody to teach a little bit of a self release for the massage. Because massages, I think, are fantastic to get, but they're not necessarily economically possible for everybody. So with the lacrosse balls, I've been showing them how tightness in the wrist, elbows, and shoulders can be handled through rolling out of the forearms, biceps, and triceps. Yeah. And that if they're experiencing a lot of lower back pain, how they can roll out their hips and their many different series of the glutes to help them out with that. And then got everybody with their shoes off to show how rolling the arches of the feet help with foot pain that comes. So those 3 major areas that we're generally experiencing most pain when we're coming off of our shifts, teaching them how a $3 lacrosse ball might might heal them completely. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not always about how much something costs. If it's effective, it's effective. Mm-hmm. You know, coffee filters are less than a cent a piece, but they're incredibly functional. Mm-hmm. You know? The audience themselves, they've been pretty responsive thus far?
Yeah, I think so. Today was, I think it's good watching, my favorite part is watching the people experience how the self-myofascial release will really just the trigger points once they start to release, they like their eyes and like seeing them sink into it because they're relaxed and actually feeling like some sense of relief for the first time in a long time, or just seeing how simplistic of a solution there is. I think that's been really cool.
It's an amazing thing to kind of to see people just get it all of a sudden, you know?
Yeah, I think it's been really cool. And today was a much smaller group this morning compared to yesterday. So I just sat down and had like a more intimate conversation with everybody, asking them what they do. There was some bar managers, there's some bar backs, bartenders, a little bit of and a brand ambassador, trying to figure out what they do on a day-to-day life and see how they're trying to make healthy choices. It was really refreshing to hear that most of them are either implementing 4-day schedules for their people or are already on it, and they didn't really, I don't know where this came from, but I'm really happy to see that we're not like forcing the burnout before it's a problem. Like it's a huge problem in our industry, but they're just not buying into it, which is great.
Interesting.
And talking to people who have been in the industry for 6 years, 16 years, and seeing the different wears and tears that they're already experiencing and how we can like come together and kind of combat that.
It's amazing. Did you ever see yourself kind of in the teaching capacity?
Yeah. I mean, I even though I ended up at Hopkins in that position, I was an academic advisor and I taught. I was a PE teacher for a little while too, generally for little kids. So it's good to see the same light in the eyes from the adults that the kids would have.
That glimmer of kind of like curiosity and understanding that I think it comes through at any age.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking that I'd be teaching this while bartending, but because of my healthy habits and they showed in my community, people were like kind of joking and making fun of like, how can you possibly do any of this? I'm like, well, it's actually sort of easy if you just give yourself a little bit of time and willingness to adjust, that it's such easy transitions that can be done to make for better healthy living while in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, so it's absolutely possible. You're helping people understand that it is possible. And so you were in Dallas yesterday, Austin today. Where are you guys heading tomorrow?
San Antonio.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So the trifecta.
Yeah.
It's great people in San Antonio too. So again, you get this thread of health, this thread of mental and physical health, learning more behind the bar. And I'm really curious, where do you think this all kind of ends up? Because you've got so many different possibilities. Or is it just day at a time, figure it out as it goes along?
I guess I am trying to forge my own space with the new health kind of turn towards everything. I mean, it's always been there for me. I just didn't know it would be there in this capacity.
In this capacity, right? Yeah.
Personally, at home, I am teaching a free movement class for everybody on my bar staff once a week on Mondays, and then I allow for $5 drop-ins for anybody in our guild or hospitality industry. So I'm starting with that. I don't know whether I want to make just like a bartender movement lab in itself and try to go from there. But I think in the meantime, while I try to figure it out, I'm just going to keep preaching the gospel of healthy moving and healthy living while you're in the hospitality world.
It's incredibly beneficial. A lot of people don't have the confidence to take the right steps. And I think that you giving them some signs and some understanding, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So I've got one more question
for
you. Because I want to know who you kind of find interesting. We joke about Cal Ripken Jr. being awesome because he was awesome. But let's imagine you're at any bar in the world. I don't know, the Savoy in London or something. Something beautiful, right? And you're ordering whatever you want. But you're having a drink, and you could share that drink with anybody, living or deceased. Who might you like to just sit next to and have a conversation with?
Oh, man. I've never thought about that one before. Maybe Babe Diedrichson.
Who's
like a very, very long ago female athlete who was a golfer and just this towering behemoth of a woman. She was amazing. But, broke a lot of barriers in terms of women getting into these kind of sports that were gentlemen's clubs and things like that. I think I always still go back to, like, women's rights and sports and things like that. So that's probably where I'd go back
Pioneer
to.
like that.
Yeah. She was a force to be reckoned with.
See, but the good thing is now I'm going to look her up.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of the whole point. Because it's like we all have really particular interests. And for some reason that question really helps me understand people at a different level. So, but it's good that you're here in Austin. It's good that you're telling people how to be healthy. I'm really excited to see what happens next. And, Godspeed on the rest of the tour here with Bar Institute. Thanks so much, Amie, for sitting down and chatting with me.
Thank you.
Well, there we have it, Miss Amie Ward of Baltimore, traveling these fine United States with the Bar Institute, talking about health, talking about eating, talking about planning, how to just take care of your body. And she has, as she mentions, a tip there with a lacrosse ball, a cheap purchase on Amazon that can help your shoulders and other areas of your back tremendously to alleviate stress and a lot of that lactic acid that builds up. So yes, health is a big passion of mine and of course Amy's, and it's great to talk about this stuff. So thank you for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how excited you are that Ray Donovan's season 5 will be premiering this August, or if you're thinking, man, how could Silicon Valley get any better, Blood Boy? Please keep dancing.